Hi, Drew.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, and you?
Good.
Great. Thank you for joining us. We are happy to have you here.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here.
So I was telling our audience that you work for Ferguson, and then you are UX UI designer for them and you're located in Virginia, United States. And well, you're known as the Toolman. So we want to know more about you. So we're gonna do some questions, and at the end, the public is just gonna do some more questions for you. Okay?
Sure, sounds good.
Great, thank you. So can you tell us more about the initiative to create the UI kit?
Yeah, at Ferguson, we were, kind of following the trend of getting on to design systems and stuff like that. And kind of the first step of getting in a design system is just creating alignment with the design team. And so the way we did that was the whole team was using Sketch, and so we utilized the symbols in Sketch to create pretty deep UI kit with deep nested symbols and stuff like that. But that just allows the whole team to be able to use the same tools and create the same product with the same look and feel across all these different projects and initiatives that we have going on. And so, yeah.
Okay, great. Sounds great. And this was something like they ask you for it, or you just propose it?
It was kind of a gap. They were kind of struggling to figure out where they wanted like the design system to live, and they still haven't really figured that out. And I don't know the code side of things, but I did know the tools, and so I knew that Sketch had the ability to create those types of symbols and stuff, and that you could share them with Sketch Cloud libraries. And so I went ahead and put it together in kind of my spare time, and the team's been using it ever since. I have a couple other UI kits on some other tools, just testing them out and seeing what works and what doesn't. And so far, we've decided to go with Sketch.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit more about why they call you the Toolman?
They call me the tool man because I'm out of everyone on the team. I'm kind of the one that keeps up with all the different apps and reading their release notes and stuff like that, trying to figure out which ones have the most advanced feature set and stuff, and which are going to help our team the most and fit into our processes the best. So,
Okay, great. And one thing that you learn when you're a designer, the first thing they told you is not about liking something or if it's pretty or not, and it's more about if it works. So how do you design the right thing and know it's going to work?
good question. Um, I don't think you'll ever know if it's going to work. There's always going to be like a level of risk involved, right? But we went through a book called Inspired at work, and it kind of walked us through three things that you should be testing for when you start a design project. Number one, it's valuable. Number two, it's usable. And number three, it's feasible. And what they mean by that is valuable. You should do some user interviews and stuff and see if people are willing to spend money on what it is that you're putting out there. Because if they're willing to spend money on it, that means they have a need for it, and you're filling a void in their life. Is it usable? That's where usability tests come in, and user testing and stuff like that to see if if the product is usable, if there are gaps in the way that you designed it, and then if it's feasible, that comes in context with like the developers and stuff that you're working with. You don't want to design something crazy that they're not able to build, or they don't have the right tech stack to put it in place and stuff. So it's kind of a multifaceted checklist you got to go through before you can have confidence moving forward with the project.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so I know the title of the UX session was designing the right thing for the right way. So how do you know if it's the right way to do it, and in what do you base your decision about being the right or wrong tool to use?
Mm. So, yeah, we kind of live in the glory days of tools right now. I mean, there are so many tools out there. They're all competing for the same space. And, some have different feature sets than others, and you gotta, I mean, the best way that I know how to do it is to keep up with what they all offer, to know, which one is going to be the best for what you're trying to achieve. If you're just doing low fidelity wireframes, there are tools out there made specifically for that. You might not want to jump to Sketch for a low fidelity wireframe, unless you had some kind of UI kit that already had some of those wireframe pieces put together. But like for specifically that, like, tools like Envision's Freehand is great for low fidelity stuff because it kind of takes you away from how the different elements look and gets you more into just like a brainstorming session. Some you need much more high fidelity, and so you're going to want to get as close to code as possible. And there are tools out there that can actually produce code for you. And it's kind of crazy how close design and code are coming nowadays. But yeah, it's kind of tricky. You gotta read up on the tools and know what they're capable of before knowing how to move forward. And it's always good to have like some tools that you're comfortable with that are your go-tos, that which stage of the process you're in, you'll know which tool to use.
Okay, great, thank you. So Diana is actually part of the live, and she's asking,
hello.
How do you improve the communication between the programmers and the designers?
So, design to development handoff is always a crucial step in the design process because we're always trying to, communicate as accurately as possible what we envision the project or product to be. So I think there are some tools out there that do that well. Some are, they haven't really found it yet. I think Envision's a good one for replacing kind of the redlining that you might do in a sketch file, setting out what fonts you're using, what colors you're using, how big a block is, how far it's away from that. Envision has, when you upload a prototype to Envision, they have a feature called Inspect that you can give access to your developers, and they can have access to all those things. Anything you set in Envision, or in your sketch file rather, as exportable, they'll be able to download those as SVGs or whatever you want. So that's been good for our team. Another thing is just making it as close to the end product as possible. A lot of people are prototyping in HTML and CSS now, and there are tools like Webflow that can even make that process even easier. And then you're actually delivering real coded websites to the development team, and they just have to hook up the back end and you're good to go.
Okay, great, thank you. So do you think that we should use different tools in different stages of the design process, or you just use one?
No, I definitely think it's good to have, especially the kind of environment that we're in today with tools. They make kind of a tool for every thing you can think of, and depending on which stage of the process you're in, there's probably a better tool for it than the one that you're using, unless you're using the right tool. So like when you're brainstorming stuff, maybe it's just pen and paper. Maybe that's still the best tool, or maybe it's something on an iPad where you can draw it up, or maybe it's Envision Freehand or something like that. Whatever works, kind of the way your mental model is in your head, and the way that makes it easier for you to get it out of your head and down on something so that it can be critiqued or tested, with users. The faster you can do that in that stage is better. And then the next stage is, creating mock-ups, high fidelity mock-ups and stuff. And you want pixel perfection at that point. So maybe you're jumping into Figma or Sketch or Adobe XD. But at that point, you're going more for accuracy rather than iterations. And then the next step is prototyping. Depends on if you need a low fidelity prototype. Are you just testing a single step of the process, or are you testing kind of like the whole look and feel of an entire app? Are you trying to walk them through and let them explore, or is there a desired path that you want them to take? all those are going to lead you to which prototyping tool you're going to use. And then, yeah, designer to development handoff is the last one. And if one of your tools doesn't offer a handoff already, that's going to make your job harder. So you might need to backtrack and make sure one of these earlier tools support you later on down the road in your process as well.
Okay, thank you. So if you have to pick one tool, which one is your favorite and why?
Okay, so I've really been into a tool called Webflow lately. I've been following them for a really long time, and they've just been coming out with a lot of great features lately. It's kind of a tool that you can visually build websites, and I know that a lot of designers out there have heard that before from WYSIWYG editors and stuff, and they don't trust them anymore. But you know, the development team at Webflow has really put in a lot of solid work into the product, and I just love being able to create basically whatever I want and have it live within, you know, a couple hours or something. And you know, I've seen other people on my team struggle with code and JavaScript, and I can quickly put together a prototype of what they're thinking, and you know, they can use that code to build off of it or change it up. And it's just a fun tool to use and makes me be able to build things even faster than I could imagine could be done. So it's just a fun tool.
Great. So it's basically for building websites without knowing code.
Yep. And they're expanding into e-commerce now and lots of other stuff. And no, I'm not sponsored by them, but hey, if you want me to.
Great. And why would you say it's better than any other, like any CMS, like Joomla or WordPress or Drupal?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of CMSs out there, obviously, and WordPress is hosting, what is it, 1/3 of the websites on the internet. But what I like about Webflow is it has a clear distinction between designers and content creators. They do have a CMS, and you know, you have, as a designer, you have access and control over everything design related, over the look and feel of the site, and then it completely separates the content for the CMS and the editors of the site to be able to create the content however they want to. And you're not limited to kind of the structure that WordPress gives you. You know, WordPress kind of, you start out with a post or a page, maybe some categories, some authors. But if you wanted, like, let's say events, you'd have to add a plugin, you'd have to create a custom post type or something, especially if you wanted those events to have something that were kind of abnormal from other events, maybe like an Instagram live feed or something like that. Webflow allows you to add, it's super easy to add custom post types. They call them collections, and you can add any kind of data fields to those collections to basically build whatever site you want. And they're constantly building and adding new features. So
great. And so what do you learn about all these new tools? Because I know every day there's something new, or every month, or
yeah.
So how do you realize there's something there?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think I kind of see it as a pastime, but I follow some podcasts. A good one is Layout. I forget the guys' names from it, but one guy's from Shopify and one guy's from like a startup. So they have kind of two different perspectives on it. And then there's a good kind of curated list called Muesli. It's a Chrome extension, and they kind of are always posting about things in the tech industry or design industry or art, and they have kind of a curated list on there, and it kind of replaces your new tab. Whenever you open a new tab, you're like bombarded with inspiration. So that's a good source. There's some blogs out there. Envision's blog is really good. Webflow's blog is really good. And just kind of keeping up with release notes of kind of the big players that I follow, like Figma, Envision, Webflow. Their whole team, I get a lot of inspiration from their marketing team as well, and just their content. So I kind of keep up with that and try and keep up with stuff as best I can. If I see a new tool, I'll read up on it and see how it differs from the ones I'm familiar with. and see if I could get anything from it.
That's great. So, going more into the design part, like the UX design, do you have any like recommendations for our followers or something that you would like to add about design, like something that you think is like important that we have as designers?
Important that we have? I think, well, keeping with the topic of tools and stuff, I want to reiterate how great of a time it is that we're living in, that we have all these competing tools, striving to be better and replace one another. Like, that's just going to make the tools even better. And it's exciting to see where the tools are heading, what kind of features they're getting. XD just came out with like voice control in their prototypes. And so that opens up a whole new kind of level of prototyping that, I wouldn't think was possible in a design software a couple of years ago, But, it's just progressing really fast, and it's exciting to see where it's all going to go. I'd love to hear some tools that y'all know of that I haven't mentioned, and, I could look into those. FramerX is a big one. They're tying more into code too. You can make coded components and actually adjust them within the app based on the code that you make them out of. I guess they use React or something like that. But yeah, there's just a lot of crazy tools out there that are changing kind of the game for us designers. And I think it's important for us to keep up with all of them because we don't know which one's going to take off and, leave the rest behind.
Yeah, that's true. But forgetting for a minute about the tools we have, what would you say? You mentioned something about the value when you're talking to the programmers, like the value and the usability, the feasibility.
Sure.
So,
I think it's important. It's kind of interesting. I have a marketing design background, and now I'm more into UX. But there are some things that I learned from my marketing background, like value proposition development and stuff like that, that I've found useful as it carries over into user experience. So it's kind of interesting, like you can discover the value of the product that you're building and see if users already find it valuable, but you can also do a better job of communicating that value to the users and kind of persuade them to thinking that it's valuable. Apple does a great job of this. But, value proposition development can be tricky and hard to think about, but there are some really good courses out there that I've taken. Mech Labs is one. They do a really great job of training you how to develop value propositions and how to apply those value propositions to landing pages and different parts in your marketing funnels and stuff like that. And there's lots of tools out there that kind of reiterate the same thing, but and it's not, I don't think the method that you choose is as important as just having a solid method and pushing it forward with your team, creating that alignment on the team and really sticking to it. But I think there's a lot of crossover between marketing and UX. I used to not think so, but the more I think about it, they cross over a lot and kind of depend on one another in a lot of ways. So.
Oh yes, definitely. And I know there are methods out there, but what is mainly what is the value proposition trying to test or prove when you're doing a design? Because I know you mentioned about inspired, and we had a quote recently in Instagram saying that it's better to have mercenaries than missionaries. So you don't want someone to tell you what to do, but more give that express value to the design you're making. So can you speak more into that?
Yeah, sure. So having a method of coming up with value propositions, basically a value proposition is the ultimate reason why a person says yes to something. If I am your ideal prospect, why should I do what you want me to do rather than anything else I could be doing with my time? And that's useful. Being able to answer that question in the mind of the people who are thinking it, that's useful from a product team's perspective. That's useful from a UX team's perspective as they're trying to get traction within their company, you know. You should invest. Why should I, if I am the VP of your company, why should I invest in UX rather than IT? You know, you want to be able to answer that question. And then the product that you're building for your users, if I am your ideal user, why should I use your product rather than this other product over here that's also being developed at the same time? What do you have to offer that's better? And once you know that differentiating factor, it'll be easier for you to position your product within the market and, you know, position your career in the company, position your department within your branch, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to get that yes for. And I think it could go a long way as designers to get the seat at the table and have some voice at their companies. And we see that happening more and more as designers are becoming leaders within their companies and making waves.
Yeah, advocating for UX.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned about marketing and design and UX, and now we have Ivan Martinenko, and he's saying, what about user-centered design, testing, etc. And then Diana is also, Diana Seven Franco, Diana, it's excited about you mentioned marketing. So I think all of them are related. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I think they're all different practices, and you can spend your time focusing on so many different areas as a designer, not just design, but maybe you were interested in illustration, maybe you're interested in motion, maybe you're interested in development and coding, maybe you're interested in testing and you know, creating user tests, creating card sorting exercises and stuff like that. Maybe you're interested more in the marketing side of things. Maybe you want to get into email marketing. That's a whole new ballgame other than apps and websites. You know, there's so many different ways you could take your career, and that's what's exciting about the time that we're working in. There's no shortage of design jobs. There's nothing but opportunity.
Great. Good. So I wonder if anyone else has more questions, or if you want to, like, a final quote or remark for our followers.
Design well and be nice to people.
That's great. So I guess, well, that's all the questions I'm saying here. So I would say thank you very much for your time, for spreading the knowledge, sharing your knowledge with all of us.
Sure thing, anytime.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, see you later.
Bye. Oh, I see. Before you go.
Sure.
Sorry. 2 more questions. So,
okay.
Do you specialize in only a part of the design process, or do you recommend having an overall knowledge?
I guess that depends on where you're working. Like I mentioned, that podcast called Layout. Both of those guys have 2 different perspectives. One is at a startup, and the guy at the startup kind of has to wear a bunch of different hats. He has to, you know, kind of discover the value of what he's building. He needs to come up with wireframes. He needs to do the mock-ups and prototypes to hand off to developers. He also needs to do a lot of the marketing stuff for it, marketing pieces, and probably animations and stuff to go onto Facebook videos and stuff like that. But then the other guy is kind of a manager of a design team, and he kind of just facilitates the process that his team goes through. And that's kind of becoming a new area in and of itself, is design ops. And, you know, not just designing things or products, but designing people and teams. And I think that's an interesting aspect that I'm getting more interested in, is how to design a design team. And so I think there's enough room in the design industry to be able to focus on what you want to focus on. Don't follow the trends. Don't be worried about what pays the most, but do what's going to make you happy. And I think that's where you're going to perform best.
Great. So Diana is saying gracias, which means thank you.
De nada.
Oh yeah, you know some Spanish.
Chiquitiquito.
Poquitico. Great. So, well, any more questions out there, someone, before we say bye again? Well, I guess that's all.
All right.
So, thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Anytime.
Okay. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.